Hey, Piet Hein,
Hi, Marcus.
how are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Like almost everybody in a strange world.
Where are you speaking from? Are you back in your studio?
Yeah, this is my office. So the back of it shows a little bit of how the rest also is. So like quite chaotic, but
So
you always
welcome,
need a small part.
welcome to today's Screen Time interview, part of Virtual Design Festival, sponsored by Philips TV and Sound. Philips is obviously quite close to you, where you are in the world. Tell us who you are and what you do and where you are right now.
Well, I'm at this moment in my office, which is part of a huge building, which was formerly from Philips. So we actually bought it from a developer who bought it from Philips, and we're sort of using the remains of this company, which was very important in Eindhoven, and they actually created the school, which I did, the Design Academy. So it was the company who more or less initiated industrial design in Holland. And then they left or abandoned Eindhoven because production was everywhere in the world except in the West. So they have a huge amount of space and knowledge and suppliers. And I think that's the reason why I'm still here. I like to design, but also manufacture and sell. And they left by leaving the space, the perfect surrounding for a self-producing designer. And well, that's this. That's what I'm doing.
And that area of Eindhoven where your studio is has kind of been reinvented, hasn't it, as a very creative district. Tell us a little bit about what else is happening in that area.
Yeah, it's very nice and a sort of classic development in the sense that it was like when Philips left and some other big industries, everybody thought it would die. Also because at that moment, like 20, 30 years ago, people thought that production in the West would fail. As a lot of people thought also Germany would go down the drain. And instead of that, the production areas at that time are still very strong, and they sort of revived and found their own way of surviving. And one of the issues which gets a lot of attention, but which is not the most important, is design, of course. So Eindhoven is well known for a huge amount of designers working here in their own studios and showing their products, of course, during the design week, but actually the whole year through. There's a lot of creativity and a lot of activity around creativity in Eindhoven. But the major thing they left is high tech industry like ASML, which makes the machines to make chips, and it's a world leader company. And this kind of companies have a big influence of the growth in Eindhoven. In combination with creativity, it's a very nice surrounding to be at this moment, because it comes from nothing and becomes really nice and vivid and changing all the time.
And there's quite a community of designers in Eindhoven who went to the Design Academy and then stayed in the city. Were you originally from Eindhoven, or did you move to the city to go to the school?
Yeah, I come from Amsterdam, so I lived nearby Amsterdam and went to school over there, and then I started studying here. And because what I said, at that moment Eindhoven was really boring. It was one of the worst cities to live in Holland, but there was a lot of space to set up a company, and you know, like the suppliers, like the literally space. Employees, the people are used to work here. I always make the joke that they work here and they talk in Amsterdam. So, and it's more or less true. But for me, it was a perfect surrounding. And at that time, and now it's for a lot of designers a perfect surrounding, also because there's an additional amount of creativity and artistic movement. So now it's also interesting. It was boring and useful, and now it's vivid and interesting, and everybody, a lot of people at least, stay here after they studied.
And you say you're in the office in your studio, but I think your studio is the biggest studio I've ever seen. that belongs to a designer. It's a factory basically, isn't it? It's huge. Tell us about how big it is and how many people work there and how many items you produce each year or any given period.
Yeah, I'm not so good in the amounts of products we make, but the whole space is 10,000 square meters. I think it's 30,000 square feet or something like that. I'm not sure. And we have around 100 employees already for years. It goes a little bit up and down with the time. And most of them are working in the production, but also a lot in the restaurant. And at this moment, we're working on a hotel, which will open in October this year, hopefully. And then we add a new thing to the whole complex. So we'll have more employees and more, well, how do you call it? We try to create a complete world around what we're doing. So the hotel is a perfect addition to that. And there's a lot of studios also we have. So we're not only working ourselves here, but also we're renting to others who are making really interesting things and have interesting jobs.
And how has this whole pandemic time been for you? How much has it impacted your work and how have you been able to adapt?
Yeah, well, the funny thing is before it started, we already had huge problems in trying to be efficient enough in production. So the sales were okay, but we failed to produce it in a sufficient way. And actually, that's still the biggest problem. So the corona, of course, influenced the restaurant, which was closed for several months, and now is opened, but slowly gets its old customers back because the people are a little bit afraid still, and they take time before they actually come again. But still, it's going okay. The shop is really good at the moment, and it was also completely dead. But we did have a huge portfolio of orders. We didn't went empty with that, so we have a lot of work to do still. And at this moment, we're selling much more than we can produce. So, end of the road, Corona didn't influence that part of the company, which is the most important part. But we still have the same problem that we have to produce the things we sell, and that's not always as easy as it looks like.
And finally, before you show us your presentation, I know that Dutch Design Week is one of the most important design weeks in the world, particularly for young and independent designers. And it is going to go ahead in October, but it's not going to be the same as previous years, is it? How do you think that week will impact the city? How is the city going to make the most of these challenging times?
Yeah, of course, it's difficult to adapt to measurements which are changing all the time regarding Corona. But in fact, what I just told is that we have so many designers in Eindhoven working in their own studios. And if they open their studios, it's more or less the DNA of the Design Week. So what the Design Week and the organization decided is to focus on the basic quality of it, which is that we have enough presentation space and content to make a really nice Design Week, which is in terms of quality almost the same as we normally have. And then we can add what's possible depending on what the government says we are allowed to. But the DNA is so strongly what we produce here, and it's so much about creativity and not about sales and square meters, that I'm really sure that we will be able to make a really nice and beautiful Design Week. The only problem is that it's not for 300,000 people or more, but that it's for a limited amount of customers, and we'll focus on those visitors who are relevant for the participants. So we try to get like the gallery owners, the journalists, the people who communicate about it, the buyers. So we make like a short list of people, a long list of people, and then we add as many interested people as possible. And probably everybody has to be, well, and that's not probably, it's almost sure, it's organized. So it's different from previous years. So if you want to attend, you really have to make a plan according to the schedules which will be made. But I think in terms of content and both for the visitors and for the participants, it will be better because it's more focused on quality and well, many people together are not the nicest thing in the world. And I think it's clear now again, but history is full of massive people which go wrong. You know, it doesn't have that good influence on mankind. But I hope we'll have as many people as possible in the best possible way in terms of quality. And I think we will be able to do that in a very good way.
So it's time to see some of your work. Do you want to share your screen and go through your presentation?
Yeah, I'll try to do that. Wait, live. It flips up. Oh, it didn't. Oh, wait. This is it, huh?
Yeah, it's working. There we are. Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. So it's very much in line what we're talking about. This is the opening image, which shows the Corona crisis collection. I designed a crisis collection in 2001 or 2 when the Twin Towers were attacked by terrorists. And at that moment, the economy went down and people were complaining in Holland massively about their poverty. And actually everybody was equally rich as before. So I designed a sort of system of making furniture which could be assembled by our customers themselves. But they refused to do it themselves. So in the end, we ended up in assemble it ourselves and then paint it in colors. The original color was gray. Then we adjusted this series in 2010 with the bank crisis. And meanwhile, I produced many other objects in the same system and way of thinking. And now for Corona, we painted all the objects pink, we call it Corona Pink. So it's 20 years of Corona and 3 crises further. And it's a sort of, it started as a joke because people were complaining that much about crisis. But it also is, it makes you think about the fact that when a crisis arrives, everybody is panicking. But in the end, we survive all of them. And this collection is also very strong always when things go down. So for me, it's a very nice storytelling and beautiful collection. And it's our most affordable collection. That's, of course, that was the starting point of it. Not all of it, but the tables and the simple products are very affordable, which I think is one of the major themes in my work, is that I always try to be to make as democratic designs as possible, which is very difficult if you produce in the West, and you have to really produce in a clever way. And this collection is one of the best in that sense. But in the meanwhile, I'm trying to switch to the next image. It doesn't work. Wait. Oh, there it is. So in the meanwhile, I just come back from those houses in France, and my daughter, my oldest daughter, went the night before France was closing the borders to France and lived there for 1.5 months with friends of her. I call it like a safe haven. It's in the middle of nature. There's no illness, no sick, nothing. And when I bought it, it was a ruin. And it turns out to be very Corona-proof, because everybody wants to be in these houses at this moment, because nobody is flying to the east and so on. So for the holiday houses, it's quite nice. But I work my ass out to clean everything up for this season. And it's really like the opposite of what we're having in cities. You know, it's like in the forest. It's completely nature. Everything is inspired by the environment itself. Like the river, you know, it's an old water mill, and the stone is from the area, the wood is from the area. It's quite the opposite of our way of living, which I like specifically. And it's, for me, it's very much about this time. So this, oh wait, this goes too fast. This is a process. It's finished at the same time. So while we had to adapt to the measurements taken for Corona, I started before that to make a hairdresser cabin in our own street with a parking place underneath. And this guy was such a wonderful guy who wanted to be a hairdresser in our site. And then, but we didn't have the space for it. But I did have an old container. So at a certain moment, I said to him, "I really love to have you here and to be a hairdresser and to add something idiot to our how do you call it, portfolio of activities." And we sort of used the Corona time to open his space. So now he's opened, and we have not only a restaurant. The entrances of the restaurant is to the left, but we also have a hairdresser now in our space. I really love the idea. And at the same time, we're also working on the hotel. This is a wall, which will be, of course, finished with other materials. And with 13 rooms, the hotel. And I started thinking about during May last period of time when we were working on it, that each time when there's a crisis, I always invest in something massively by coincidence. So it's not that I think about it, but it's very clever, but not intentional. Because if you do something while the world is going down, and it comes up again, you have an additional quality and capacity and an exciting thing. And the hotel will be wonderful with very nice rooms and a very nice lobby and a roof terrace, and we will have a rooftop bar. And so we're working very hard on very different things at the moment, which I think is quite nice. And this is the guys working. So we made a small, only one image. This is Bart. It's one of our carpenters who's working on the CNC and very talented. And then this is the opposite of the crisis collection, and which is sort of a blamage for me, because I always thought and wanted to produce affordable furniture. And now we're sort of in a situation that people respect us the best for the most exclusive furniture. But again, this was a sort of a conceptual approach in a sense that I made a nature and waste project. The waste tables I make are also in this project, in which I try to exaggerate labor to save as much material as possible. And in this case, it's wood from the forest. And by adding a huge amount of hours, you save it and you make like a piece of forest at home in the city home. So, you know, a farmer would never put this in his place because he has this pile of wood outside the door. You know, he has to heat up his home with it. But in the city, it's a sort of storytelling object about nature, and also the distance from nature we got during the years. Actually, this is a twin cabinet. So in the middle, you can take it apart, and it's two cabinets which you can put into each other at the sides. And here you can see it. And this is one of the latest series. It's again in the, let's call it the Exaggerated labor series, which is one of the themes. I'm very much fascinated by the fact that in old times, people were spending much more time to their to production. And also without television, people were working every night at home and evening just to fill up their time. And the most idiot and beautiful things are made at that time. And since I sort of described this for myself, I started making furniture which is beyond calculating. You know, I just make it, and then the time determines the price. And I would love to give it away for free, but of course it's not possible with this kind of hours. But this is old oak, which I gained from a client who bought an old farm, and there was a shed there, and with a huge amount of old wood, and the wood is so extremely beautiful, but it cracks when you cut it, and it's very hard, and it gives this beautiful pattern. And in the end, here you can see the whole system with hidden handles in it, and well, that was it. So this is a little bit the story I can tell about what we're doing. We're making affordable furniture, expensive furniture. We're doing a lot of commissions, and happily there's a lot of customers who are still doing really good. And we survive by making, like you said, huge huge factory with a lot of people, giving a lot of headaches.
Great. Is that your last image?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you could unshare the screen now.
Stop share. Yeah. Yes.
So it's interesting that there aren't that many designers who produce objects themselves under their own name. I mean, there's Tom Dixon is one of the few British designers who does that. Most designers design for other brands. Why do you decide to create your own label, your own brand, rather than working for other people?
Yeah, Tom Dixon is very familiar. He's a good friend. And the difference between him and me is that we produce on location. So that's why it's so big. So he's actually much bigger than I am if you look at the design part. But if you look at the production, of course, he produces, he's very much inspired by the production facility he collaborates with, which is quite interesting actually. But it's very, very close to each other in mentality and approach. And I think for both, the starting point is that if you design, you always design in the possibilities which are given. In his case, he uses the production facilities he meets or he knows. And I try to create my own production facility, and by doing that, I get more and more knowledge about this very simple thing, about the people who work here with the machines we have, and sometimes we buy a new machine. So I try to add, like a farmer who buys land around him. I try to add structurally possibilities, and this provides me what I make. And I think most designers don't have this specific possibility because they don't have this employee and this machine and the ability to use it whenever and how they want. So for me, the production part is a very important part of the process of designing.
So how did you start then? When you finished at Design Academy Eindhoven, did you start with one room and one machine, or how did the whole thing?
More or less. Yeah. It's almost that. But when I designed the classic scrapwood cupboard, which is well known with the 2 doors above and 3 drawers underneath, like a classic cabinet, and I made it from scrapwood. That's why I took this traditional cupboard in the sense of the composition, because I thought scrapwood is new, so don't add other new things to the design. So it's a very classic thing in scrapwood. And when I made it, I already thought about the fact that I wanted to start a wood carpenter shop, and also with some welding possibilities. So I thought if I keep it to those machines, which I will buy, I can produce this cupboard myself after my graduation. So it was a presentation of the company I would like to set up. And luckily, this first project was directly very successful. So we had a real start to start the company, which was nice. And also lucky, because most of the designs I made after that failed dramatically. So the first one was good, but it was totally incidental.
So it could have gone another way.
Yeah, of course. But then I thought I'll make frames for windows and so on. I thought I will survive anyhow with those machines, and I'll just go on.
Tell us a little bit more about the scrapwood, because it was pretty unusual idea to use wood from abandoned buildings in those days. What year was it you did that collection?
In 1989, I made the design and made the first objects. Yeah, that was far before everybody thought this would be nice. Also before they started using like the scaffolding wood, now everything is used. But at that time, scrapwood in Holland was salvaged a lot. So we have a tradition of not throwing away in Holland. We're saving everything possible. It's the Dutch mentality probably. And my father always made rabbit homes from it, and outdoor sheds for the chickens and that kind of stuff you made with it. So it was recycled, but not for domestic purposes. And I loved it actually. I was walking at the lumberyard at a certain moment, and I saw the wood not to make furniture from it. And I thought, this is much nicer than new wood. So that was the moment I thought, I'm going to make from the old wood, which I loved much better than new, to make furniture from it. And it took some time before it was accepted at school, but it was a good idea.
And when you say scrap wood, for anyone who's watching who doesn't know the piece, it was kind of wood that had paint on it. Was it used for floorboards or walls in old wooden houses? It wasn't plywood or small bits of wood.
No, it's massive wood. And in Holland, we have a tradition of constructing with planks, like wooden structures, floors, fences, ceilings, walls. So there's for example, the fences are always green, and the outside wood is often gray, white, black. So the colors are also very significant for the area where it comes from and for the use where it was used for. And because it's thrown away, it's almost always old. So the paint is destructed. So you have like a very rich pattern of colors and structures with it, and which gives you an immense scala of colors. You can make compositions with it very easily. And the designs also were made to like frames to fill in with scrap wood. So the frame is always the same. It's built in a small series, but the colors of the scrap wood you choose for each cabinet itself, which is a very nice additional value of old material, of course, because it's unpredictable, which I love. It's in a lot of my work. The quality of the material predicts the design, and it's not me who does it. It's the material who does it, which is fun.
And is it still easy to find scrap wood, or have you used it up already?
Well, we're one of the biggest buyers, I think. And I stopped worrying about it after 3 or 5 years, because it was always coming from somewhere. And if you think about it, because we have a rich culture of architecture with wood, and we have, in Holland is very small. So if you want to build something, you have to demolish something. And there's a lot of renovations. And we have this culture of recycling. So there's a continuous stream of wood coming on the market, and because more and more people know what we're doing, we also have a lot of relations which offer us the wood directly. So it's okay for now. But if it's finished, I would love it, because then it's finished. That's a nice story also. But I have to think about something else then.
And a lot of your work uses timber, a lot of it uses recycled wood or offcuts. Is there an environmental strategy behind that, or is it simply finding a material that you can do something with?
Well, I always felt very uncomfortable with the environmental discussion in a sense of recycling, because if you recycle, it often doesn't mean that it's good for the world. So the same discussion that sometimes plastic is better than paper because of all kinds of reasons, if you really calculate. But for me, material as a starting point and not throwing away is really important. And when I bought and worked on the houses in France, which I just showed, the watermill, I realized after a while that they made those houses because of the water. It was a watermill, so you need water. But they put it at that place exactly because they also had a graveyard. They used the stones from upriver, and they used the river to transport the stones to make the dike and the houses. And they used the wood from the forest. And they put it at that place specifically because they had a small dike with a huge amount of water capacity behind it when they closed it. And so there's a lot of understanding for nature at that space. And then I thought, they didn't have computers, they didn't have machines, but they were able to transport huge blocks of stone because they understood what nature gives them. And if you think about that, and you think about the idea that you use or you take advantage of the employees you have, the machines you have, the material which are available, instead of you have a design and then you take the world and the capacity from all over the world, then you always take a lot of energy more than if you use what's around you. So I'm a person who always tries to do the most simple logic thing. And I think that's more environmental than the recycle thing itself. It fits in it, but it's not the main thing. I think the main thing is that if you design, you should take care or consider what the world offers to you and not feel like free as a bird. And we come from an era, or maybe, I don't know how long it was, that because of industrial development and ICT, we think everything is possible. And if you really think through, I think not that much is possible. If you really think about where a stone comes from, where the sources are sourced, if you think how things are made, how they are transported, there's a lot of very unlogic things, but it's part of our world as like it is normal. And so I try to make things very much back to basic and inspired by what the world offers me, so what nature offers me. And I think that's when I thought about that, I thought this is actually what is the story about my work, more than the recycle part.
And what do you have plans to do next? You're doing a hotel. Would you ever design a building or a whole city? What is the limit of the scale of your work, do you think?
Yeah, we are doing some architectural big projects also. I'm making a very small home for myself in this building where the transformers were. So three spaces of 2 by 2 meters. And that I didn't expect it to be very special, but I thought it would be nice, but now it's almost finished. I live there already. And it's really amazing because it's really a complete house, but it's 47 square meters, including the stairs. So it's less than 47 square meters. And it really feels, everybody is in love with it. So it's such a nice house, and it's such a different house from what you expect. And it's inspiring. So I don't really think in size, but I do like it's again, using what's available. So there were 3 transformer houses of 2 by 2 meters, and now it's a complete house, which is really beautiful. It was there. So.
And most years I see you in Eindhoven during Dutch Design Week, and then I usually see you in Milan as well at Rossella Rolandi's gallery. Do you go to any other design fairs?
Yeah, we went several times to Cologne, and then we stopped because we thought it didn't have any results. But the year we stopped, we got a lot of requests from Germany. So it did have result, but we didn't. It's very difficult for us. We're not so good in fairs and so on. But we always go to Milan, and we're invited sometimes to interesting other spaces and shows. And of course, with Corona, everything changed a little bit for the time being. And you don't forget that the Design Week for us is a very important platform. So we actually have 2 big presentations a year for us at Rossana Orlandi, which is like homecoming. You know, she's my host and my Italian mama, I always call her. So I have a very nice place there to present my stuff in a way which fits to the idea that you always collaborate with the same people for a long time, which is also a sense of quality and not throwing away. It's one of the biggest mistakes we make in this world, I think. We always focus on literally energy, like saving energy, or the source, the materials, the sources, not throwing away. But we use each other's energy like crazy by changing all the time collaborations with, trying to get the cheapest always. So not working again with the same people and get better, but every time working with different people. So for me, the energy of the people I work with is a very important theme. And in that sense, I love to go back to Rossana Orlandi every year because it's a sort of efficient, and it's very comfortable in the mindset. And we have a big presentation here, so it's twice a year, which is a lot. And maybe we should do better or more, but at this moment we're focusing on those two.
And where do your sales come from? Is it from people who come into the studio, or the internet, or the fairs? Where do people find out about your work and decide what to buy? Or do you also sell through shops?
Yeah, we have worldwide. We have a worldwide network, but it's very small. I don't know how much, but maybe it's between 20 and 30 shops, and most of them are like Rossano Landi. We collaborate for years. We always try to have like contacts forever. So that's what we aim for. And so we have Welcome in Seaborn in Tokyo, and they started in 2006. That was the first collaboration without any contract. So after 10 years, he said, "Piet, should we make a contract?" I said, "No, I like it like this." So we do a handshake for the other 10 years. And this is a very warm relation, and we're always open and honest to each other. And for me, that's important to work with the same people and have you can rely on, and it doesn't have to go fast. It has to go in a nice way. But we have sales in every sense you can think about, but not much. We do never. Nothing is a lot.
Well, it's a very nice sentiment to end on, and thanks so much for talking to us today. And I hope to see you soon in the real world.
Okay, thank you, Marcus. Bye bye.
Bye, Piet Hein.
Bye.